perfect. One, two, three, perfect. Round. You win. Sonic boom. Yoga flame. Yoga fire. You lose. You lose.
Good evening, disciples. Oos. This is Sensei 7 with West Coast Sensei. We are back in the 7th Coast Dojo. West Coast. Oos, good brother.
Oos. Man, it's been a minute, huh?
It sure has. It sure has. About 2 weeks of long meditation on the environment as we know it.
Yes, sir. That's to say the least, man. It's been a lot going on. Feels good to be, re-energized and revitalized. Just chop it up, in the dojo. Get a good discussion on, man.
No doubt, no doubt.
Man, so where should we start, man? There's so much to cover, so much to discuss, man. Trying to figure out where we should talk, man, because it feels like just so much work, just not enough hands. Shoot.
Absolutely.
Matter of fact, let's start here, man. What's your thoughts on this election cycle and our official, unofficial, depending on who you ask, president elect?
Man, there has been tons of conversation, but in my opinion, I'm not sure if it's certainly over for the most part. What is interesting is seeing the invisible lines become more solid when it comes to fealty or loyalty to a political party, down to the granular level when you have family members at odds and really going in. Excuse the dog. She's also in an uproar about this election.
Got a lot to say.
Right.
No
But
doubt.
yeah, one point or one situation to note, there was a mother who, the daughter recorded a TikTok in which the mother was provided her critique as to why her son voted independent.
Mm.
Young black man who voted independent, and she was on the phone with her mother. So you have the daughter recording the interaction, the
Okay.
mother screaming at the son, and the grandmother also screaming at the son. So it's three generations of women essentially getting in on this young man for voting independent.
Mm.
And it was his first time voting,
Interesting. Okay.
you know.
Dang. So you had the mom, you had the mom, you had the grandmother, and then you had, what was it, the sister that was recording it, all
Yeah,
putting him on blast like that?
yeah. And it completely went viral, and a lot of people were making a lot of comments about it, and they thought it was comical, very relaxing to ease the tension of the election. And in the
Okay.
light of black male independence, I couldn't find it funny at all.
Mm. Shoot, do we have that clip? See if we can pull that bad boy up, man.
Absolutely. Just give me a second.
No doubt. But yeah, to speak on that vein while you pulling it up, man. For me, I'm excited. First off, hold on. We look like we got some folks that's in the chat, so go ahead and show love. We got Shango, the Eternal. Oos.
Oos
To
to the eternal.
Yes, sir. To the Eternal. Got Camp Low. Peace. Got
Oos.
JBA. Yes, sir. Got JBA. Oos. Good brother.
Oos.
But yeah, man, this election cycle, I think that I'm satisfied with the results, to be honest with you. Cause with all of the discussions that were had and the dissection of our culture at large that was had, and seeing it reflected in the larger scheme of things, for me, I think that that's a win. Um, in regards to people's political affiliation or which side of the fence that they voted, to me, I think it's inconsequential. The biggest thing is the fact that brothers went out and they stood on their square and they decided on what they thought was in their best interest, which is what this is what this whole routine and exercise is all about, is exercising your black male independence. And so to see, at least from what you're sharing, at least with this video, to see that there's some backlash and that there's obviously some thrash, I'm not surprised. Um, but I think that the fact that brothers stood on a square and said that, this is what I decided, no matter what or who feels a type of way, and I do say feel at this point, because it's the ultimate goal here, and just in taking control of your own destiny, and making decisions for yourself and thinking them through, is the biggest form of empowerment that you know I could think is the most helpful, because we've been the most downtrodden and the most exploited, especially during these times. You know, when we did that breakdown of the man not, and even looking at it from academic point of view, about how integral and how complex of exploitation our black flesh has within the greater society or within the system, and how they go about doing it, it illustrates what your current role is, and what your current view is on on how people see you, honestly, from a political vantage point, as well as a social and cultural economic vantage point. You know, it's it's I tip my hat off to the brothers, because the things that I've seen, I almost feel insulted in the manner that they blatantly try to just disrespect us and think that that's acceptable, like from the comments from politicians saying, well, if you don't vote, then you're going to lose quote unquote privileges, or if you don't lean this way, um, basically you're gonna lose all your freedoms and everything that you love and anything that you cared about is gonna be stripped away from you. Um, because you're not voting in the interest that we tell you to vote in. And all of this coming off the cusp of the power of voting is tied to the individual and an individual's empowerment to actually speak and voice their own position. And the fact that groups at large feel comfortable enough to, make these blatant statements and saying that, oh, well, your vote means because you win in this interest, your vote means this, and this is how we view you, and think that that's going to stick. For me, it's comical. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Camp, you see where we going with this. And so for me, the broader picture, what I think is the win, and I think is, what we talking to this point about black male independence is it doesn't matter who speaks or how people feel about what you've decided to do with your own time and your own energy, and brothers being comfortable in speaking and moving in that manner, because I know that, you know the way that we've been conditioned, it's like you're kind of accustomed to people just talking down to you and thinking that that's acceptable, knowing that if it was any other person, this would be considered a form of toxic abuse, you know. But yeah, man, I think that overall that's my take on the whole example or demonstration of what this election has shown or revealed to me at large. And I only see it growing from here. I only see it building from here. You got some people that that are within this space, and people who are out of the spaces who are being vocal, and they're providing some form of counter narrative to what's been historically placed upon us. And so to see that counter narrative be pushed back, and that being something that people have to contend with, for me, I gotta salute it, because before it would have just been a wrap.
I agree with you, brother. Although I also note an interesting phenomenon that is occurring, even in the light of black male independence. Somehow, black women are still taking that as, or defacting it as, Trump supporting. I don't know how, when the name is black male independence. But I guess that's a lot of the vitriol that's transferring over to black men at large from the instance with Ice Cube, and the contract with Black America, right? Or for Black America. And I have the video here. I had to throw the fair use up there about 3 times just to make sure. And I was trying to find a way to share this without, people being faces and names to pages being involved. But this was posted by BuzzFeed. Take it with a grain of salt. Their news segment. I will pull up the clip here. Can you brothers see that on screen? Now,
I see that.
let's see exactly. I'll replay it here for you guys, and I'm gonna mute up on my end just to make sure there's no feedback.
I told you to do Biden. Now we done lost a damn vote. We done lost a vote. That's gonna go to Trump. God damn. I'm worshiping these people like they're fucking God. Ain't nobody worshiping them. But God damn it, Chris, we need somebody in there with motherfucking sense. He vote independent. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You know what I said do when you go in there. You go. That's what I did. No, you did. You go in there. This shit funny. I told you. I said go Democrat Biden. Now there's a fucking vote that we done lost that can fucking go to Trump. This is why I don't do politics. I will never do this again. He said he ain't gonna vote again. Oh.
Now, you brothers just heard it for yourself. Note that the brother he exclaimed, "Stop, worshiping these people like they're gods." And the mother cursing at him, telling him she's not, but we need somebody in there with sense. And though he voted independent, this is still going to be a vote that goes to Trump somehow. And I told you to go. This is what she said to her son. I told you to go Democrat and vote Biden. You ain't do what I say when we got in there. He said, I did. I voted.
Mm-hmm.
And then the grandmother's like, well, why would you do that? Why would you vote, big mama? Big mama, why did you do that? Why would you vote independent? Why didn't you just listen to what we told you to do? He said, you know what? This is why I don't vote. And I'm never doing this again. And the sister laughed and said, he never doing this again. It's funny. So submitting to or acquiescing to the women in his family is a joke. It's hilarious. Robbing that man of his independence and free thinking for himself.
Robbing him of his dignity, putting him on blast as if that's something to be made comical of.
Correct. I mean, I was just like, is this the world that we're living in, where I thought voting was something that was supposed to be between you and when you get in the ballot box. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it's supposed to reach every corner of social media and then have a bunch of people, shame you for voting whoever you voted for. Last time I checked, when you get your ID, there's only one picture on there. I didn't know you were responsible for the feelings and thoughts of others. I thought you were responsible for the feelings and thoughts of yourself. And your vote, also, when you write your name on that ballot, I didn't see anybody else's name.
Yeah. Well, you see, in the subculture here, if you write off somebody as your dependent on your tax returns, you get to tell them how they're to exercise their vote as an American citizen in the community. That's what it looks like. This is gynometry. This is gynometry on display right here. This isn't even gynometry because it's straight to the point where it's complete ownership over said individual. And if I recall correctly, you have to be at least 18 years old. If I recall correctly, where you're able to vote, you're considered.
That is correct.
And you're considered an adult at that particular time, where you're able to think and decide for yourself on how you want to exercise your right to vote as an American citizen, if I recall correctly, in how voting works. And to see this on display, the fact that one, like as a citizen, to ask another citizen, whether it's a family member or a friend, who they voted for, it's built into the political actual architecture where you can remain private. And if you want, whether or not you decide you want to share who you voted for is at your discretion. And I think that, the way that we've been trained in families across the globe, like this is considered normal. Across the globe is talking about just in the country within the United States, where it's like you have to by default release what is your American right, what is your citizen right on who you decided to vote for, and having to come up with an explanation with it within your cohort or within your group. And I have, it's shameful. I think that this is another example of the growing pains of Black male independence, where you're seeing this pushback, and what people have gotten accustomed to, and they kind of took for granted, was how Black men are going to vote based off of what the women or the head of household, the gynocracy, as has been dubbed, has said moving forward. And I think that with this independence, and this is my opinion, going back to just observation, this election cycle revealed a few things, a few key points to me as far as the narrative that's being driven, right? On the one hand, I remember that, Roland Martin, he had his words for Ice Cube and the people and the pundits who were trying to shoot down his contract with Black America and trying to make it, a part of political game, and making him as if he's a right winger. And the fact that Ice Cube G checked him on his show and said that no, this is a contract for all Black people to actually have specific set asides. The benefit that I see with that antagonistic force, the people that they're trying to demonize, as these Black males that have gone across the grain and they've moved across the aisle, is the Democrats have to come up with a particular plan and set aside for the Black community now. If everybody was on hush mode and Black males got punked into their vote, where they just voted because Big Mama said so, and going what was par and parcel for the course. And we're talking purely from a cultural point of view. We haven't even gotten into the policies on either on either candidate. It's just whatever propaganda has been pushed for what's considered your demographic. If you don't accept that propaganda, then you're automatically counterculture. I think that that's a win for us as a Black male collective, because people decided like, hey, I'm making my own decision on my own. Whether it's Republican, independent, or whatever your flavor was, the fact is you thought it through and you made a decision. The actual pushback, the second observation that I've made from it, the first one being is that the Democrats, they have to come up with some type of response to this new movement that's been pushed to the forefront as far as free thinking, because this effect is going to last way past this election. Because now people are starting to, their eyes are starting to be open. Like, okay, at the very minimum, let me think about what I'm voting for. Like, that's something that is a bipartisan thought process. It's like nobody's telling you to vote Republican, nobody's telling you to vote independent, nobody's telling you to vote Democratic over here. What we're saying is have your rights to think. That's all we're asking for here, right? The fact that that's translated across the board, now you're seeing people like Roland Martin. I caught a piece of his video there, or his video post Biden's elected candidacy. And he had a particular excerpt about all the demands that Black America is going to need after winning this election in each particular state. And he called out Black men. He said, you have to do something about Black men and our plights and what has been going on. You're not going to shun us. And the fact that he even brought that up, because I know that a couple months before, this wasn't even a point of conversation, for me lets me know that, hey, this was a win, because again, this wasn't being talked about prior. And so that's the positive. Now the pushback, and goes into what we've discussed, at length and ad nauseum, and just deconstructing our subculture, is some of the underbelly of our subculture, where the gynocrats, for lack of a better word, who have felt entitled and empowered to write off any Black male that thinks for himself as a particular issue that all Black males, again, or man knots, are responsible for. That is what we're seeing the pushback here on. Looks like we got Sheed in the house. Let me take a quick break. Sheed, you know what I'm saying? Big salute to you. Oos.
Oos, brother Sheed.
But to the second part, which is the part that we as a collective have to stand in our square on, no matter what side of the aisle you're at, is standing up for your independence. Because the way that they're framing it is that if it's only one Black male or 1% Black male that does anything that's against the culture, all Black males are responsible. Case in point, the main focal point that most folks are arguing is that, oh, 20% of the black males voted Republican, or they voted for Donald Trump, or they didn't vote for Democrats. And the talking piece that they're moving out of, talking about the opposition, is saying, oh, you black men, saying all you black men, right? Speaking to the 20%, but still saying all. You don't care about humanity. You don't care about black women. You don't care about, you know, anything that's involving the community, ignoring the fact that 80% of brothers voted for Biden, which those who are independent thinkers and actually observe what this particular piece is, the gynometry of it, is where you're focusing on the 20% that that deferred from where your stance was, but you don't acknowledge the other 80% of brothers who actually did support the actual precedents that you wanted to set, which is either vote for Biden or vote for trying to get Donald Trump up out of here, for whatever that means, and all the consequences that means, which goes back to what we've been discussing here as far as the viewpoint culturally that they have on black men, is that your flesh to be reimagined and used however you want. So the 80% of brothers who voted Democrat for whatever reason, whether you were thinking or you just went along to get along, you mean nothing. Right now, we're focusing on this 20%, and you're responsible for these 20% and the way that they move because reasons, gynometry. And so that's the part on the second half that I'm interested in, observing and seeing the type of rhetoric that comes out of people's mouths when they start talking about black men and black males, especially with the cascading just narratives that are being pushed, just as far as just the idea of black lives and and the propping up of our dead bodies and the propping up of our exploitation as cannon fodder to push people's political agendas forward.
I find myself stumbling upon an article that I wanted to go over with the times that we're in now. And I do think that it's interesting for us to expound upon it. So I'm going to share it. This is an article in question. I'm not sure if you can see the screen here. So let's look at this headline, right? 10 years later, the infamous 2000 election ballot recount still defines Palm Beach County to many. Now, there's some photos here that they display, which I find interesting, right? It's 2000, right? That claim of it's not over. They were going tough in the paint about it not being over back in 2000, as far as the parties is concerned. And a similar event occurred this year in 2020, with 45 wanting to take things to court and demanding a recount. And I can't help but think, is this going to be another play reused and rehashed from the book that is history? One can only speculate, but I would love to hear your thoughts, West Coast.
I mean, it's not much. It's not much for me to say, except history is important. History is important. And what I mean is, when you look at the things that have happened historically, it'll give you a good forecast on what can potentially happen in the future. Yeah, man. But I want you to dive a little bit deep. I want you to dive a little bit deeper on that. I want you to dig. I want you to dig on that, man. Let's go to the deep end a little bit on that 45 versus the count and what happened historically. And let's build on that.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. So let's go through this article first before I dive a little deeper into the parallels that I'm drawing between 2000 and 2020, 2 decades later. So as well, for those that do know, back in 2000, there was a demand of a recount for Bay County, the Bay Area. And they wanted to make sure that all the votes were being counted back during the race with Bush and Al Gore. And if we want to dive into the actual wording, I frankly don't really have much feelings or opinions to the article itself, more or less the event that occurred and how it's very similar to what's occurring now. So I just pulled the article up as a piece to a visual aid to represent what it is that I'm seeing. And you brothers don't have to take my word for it. I would like you to formulate one's own opinion and let's have this discussion. But I'm going to pull up another article in just a moment. So just give me 1 second here.
You know what? While you pulling that up, there is an article that I found that may interest some of the brothers amongst this political discussion, which I think is more for entertainment. To Camplo's point about the election being a joke. At the end of the day, no matter who you're, which horse you're racing for, you still got your day to day to deal with. And so, what I'm interested in is the policy and seeing what's going to be done now that all the hoopla, in a sense, or while the theatrics are going, and as well as what's going to happen once the theatrics are done, is this stuff right here, December 31st, right? Says these 5 benefits will flame out without new stimulus money before the end of 2020. And if it is truly, President-elect Biden that is in office, or if it's DJ Trump, this is what we got to deal with on the day to day. And so I'm just gonna read over this article while Brother Seven pulls this up. And so it says, in just over 7 weeks, all of the most significant coronavirus relief programs will go expire on December 31st, 2020. After some were extended in August when President Donald Trump signed 4 executive actions, their expiration would set the stage for a tangle of financial issues starting on the first day of the new year, including an expected uptick in people filing for personal bankruptcy. America's top lawmakers and economists acknowledge that more stimulus aid is imperative to help keep people fed, clothed, housed, and employed, and to help speed up the economic recovery. Former Vice President Joe Biden, who Saturday became the U.S. President-elect, has a stimulus plan of his own. Ooh, we may want to look into that. See what that entails. However, he won't be able to formally act on it until taking up office duties on January 20th. So we can cover these 5 right now, or we can wait till later. I don't know if you got that article that you wanted to pull up, Brother Seventh.
Yeah, I have it up. It's essentially, headliner wanting to show. My bad. All right, so the fact that it's a little different because the recount was Florida, and as we watched it live, it did take a while to call Florida, but I still see it as a something that's similar, reminiscent. The Northeast remembers, if you will. Um, so yeah, and now it's demanding of an outcome of the votes. Even though this election was heavily watched, had all eyes on them. No pun intended. With Kamala liking her favorite musician is Tupac, as she enjoys her Indian cuisine at home. All eyes on me now. But I think that is interesting that 2 decades later, the same thing is kind of occurring to some capacity. And this may not hold any weight, but it is something that, piqued my interest. And I'm going to pay close attention to what we look forward to in January. Let's see if magically something is going to change. Let's see if this is written in stone. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something that can be easily overlooked or underestimated.
That lady look heated.
Oh yeah, she is mad. I don't know what what she could be mad about. Me being a little.
You think you think they gonna miscount when you got folks like that up in arms?
Oh, of course not. Come on. She got the finger wagging. She's like, she demands it.
Maybe she was the one that's actually counting, and she's like, "I'm not going back in there to recount them votes." Said, "Y'all got me messed up."
Right.
What you mean you want to recount?
Man. But what's interesting though from this election, a lot of people made comments about what we seen, what was displayed online was a bunch of, again, invisible lines becoming solid. They claim we all together. And all I could think about was this lady right here. I can think about this lady, and in the coming election, a lot of people are starting to sing a different tune. They're getting a little sweaty.
Man, the mind shifting.
Right.
Yeah, ask for that stimulus check.
But man, it'll be interesting to just see what is the grand outcome of all of this, because it's still going on. It's still fresh. You have a lot of people up in arms, coming out with their theories. I myself included. Thinking about history repeating itself to some degree.
Ooh, I think that this may be. Hold on. So I'm gonna get to Mr. Biden's emergency action plan to save the economy, because this is what he's apparently going to be implementing come January 20th.
Oh, okay.
But let's look at the top 5 benefits that we're going to lose December 31st, and depending on
throw this up there real quick.
Oh yeah, of course. Depending on 45, depending on if he ends up implementing some type of scorched earth policy, he doesn't renew that check, or whoever is in office, just actual cogs and wheels that actually prevent it, out of political, game. This is what would happen, are the 5 benefits that will be lost if no stimulus bill actually hits said counter. So 13 extra weeks of unemployment benefits. So it says individual states handle unemployment insurance claims depending if a person is eligible, how they will receive and for how long they can collect. Though it varies from state to state, the CARES Act extends the duration of benefits from 26 weeks to 39 weeks. Starting on January 1st, those additional 13 weeks provided by the federal government are gone. Some states have already backfilled the void on their own, including increasing their benefit period up to 59 weeks, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Others, including Arizona, Arkansas, and Utah, have not taken any action on it, which could leave unemployed workers in those states without assistance as the new year begins. So, definitely something to keep on the watch out on the lookout for, brothers. Checking your state specifically where you're living and seeing if they've put an addendum on the relief period as far as an extension up to 59 weeks for some states, I suppose. But if you're living in Alabama, Arkansas, or Utah, they call those three states out specifically, but there may be others. If there is no change federally on a federal level, then you may be SOL. And so you may have to find a contingency plan if you're in these three states, or just check your state locally to see where you're at. Which is why I like this. I like the idea of black males being empowered, because now it's bigger than just a political cycle. You're actually involved in local politics that are affecting you personally. With articles like this, it gives you a little bit of insight. And so you got the 13 extra weeks removed come January 1st, because all of this expires on December 31st. Then you have the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program being cut, which is another initiative of the CARES Act. Unemployment benefit up to 300 per week. And so it says the average weekly unemployment benefit doesn't always equal a worker's earnings, and typically ranges between 300 and 600 to help fill the gap. The CARES Act added a weekly unemployment benefit bonus of $600. When the bonus expired on July 31st, Trump signed an executive memo paving the way for a 300 weekly bonus for a 6-week period, with the expectation Congress would soon pass another relief package. That hasn't happened, and most states have exhausted the 6 weeks of extra funding. The $300 bonus provision is set to end on December 27th, according to the president's memo, and expected to sunset unused. Any thoughts so far, Brother Seventh, on some of these relief packages that are being rolled back on the 31st, if not re-implemented?
Is this year going to end with an official bang? Is my question.
I know, right? That countdown is completely different now. That's that countdown looking different already.
I mean, you also got to take into account that other states are working to Oregon I think they lighten the sentences for a lot of the drugs. We criminalize some drugs with respect to sentence time, and New Jersey just legalized marijuana use, recreational use, and I hope that is enough to keep a lot of those people calm. Now that they can get their hands on their vices. But again, don't quote me on this, brothers. Don't take my word for it. Just, I guess what you could say to that is sit back and enjoy the show.
Man,
season finale of 2020 is looking rather crazy.
To add on to what you just said, look at that. So it's funny that you mentioned that they're starting to ease up the policy or the enforcement of particular drugs, so then people can be so that they can be sedated. Did you hear about Oregon? She said Oregon hard drugs. Did you hear about Oregon allowing crack being as a acceptable form of drug or something to that effect?
Yeah, there was a meme. There was a meme about it, right? They took Dave Chappelle's Chappelle Show skit and was like New Jersey is like marijuana, light up the spliff, but Oregon is like peanut butter and crack sandwich. So
Hilarious.
yeah, man. So again, I say the season finale of 2020 is gonna be a doozy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
as soon as I said that, because I have some lights here that I have set up in my my living room here.
mm-hmm.
As soon as I said it was gonna be a doozy, the lights just fell. So I'm gonna be right back for a second. Let me put that back up.
No doubt. Yeah, man. I mean, just to add on to that, man. Like just thinking about from a operation standpoint, if you get enough folks who essentially are drug enabled or are drug users, and you get them what they need to sedate, then from a pragmatic point of view, that gives you enough buying time or enough time to really rearrange or restructure uh, the country that you're running at large, while you're trying to get things together. So I'm not surprised that they eased up on the marijuana, but I definitely am surprised about what they were doing out in Oregon. Like that's some hard stuff, man. If you know anything about the crack era, that actually does the reverse sometimes. Um, but to add on to that, another piece to add to the puzzle where it says that protection from evictions for failure to pay rent. I know this has been discussed a little bit and has been touched on a little bit. Um, within within the sector. Shout out to BGS. Shout out to the folks who are tracking this type of stuff. Um, where it says the CARES Act provided limited protection on evictions by only focusing on homes backed with a federal mortgage loan or households that receive some type of federal funding. The protections were then expanded in September by the Center of Disease Control, which called for a halt on evictions for failure to pay rent. This order by the agency covered more households, including renters in 43 million households, but it also had an expiration date of December 31st. So you got
Man, like I said, this season finale is looking it's looking crazy. But
yeah,
I don't want to do the fear mongering or fear porn esque stuff. But when you have the writing in front of you and these deadlines for the expiration date for a lot of these subsidies, what else can you say?
hmm I mean, what I have to say, especially from like an independent mindset, is you work with what you got. So whoever is in office, they're gonna be catching a lemon for sure. So I'm not sure how hard 45 may fight to stay in office. We'll see. Um, because you have this was happening on the 31st, and you still have the element of Congress in relation to the executive and trying to get this passed and delegate because they're still playing politics. Like amongst all of the angst, and that's what I find funny is there's so much angst between folks on who is the president elect and who isn't the president elect. However, a lot of that attention has been diverted to that, and people are forgetting that, you know, for as much as you hate 45, them checks that you hit, them checks that's hitting that account, that's coming out of his policy, and the people who are holding it up, who are trying to get you to vote for Biden, they're the ones that withheld that stimulus program or withheld that stimulus check that you could have received based on trying to get him out of office. So, take that with a grain of salt as far as how you observe the media and what's being presented in front of you, and keep your eyes on the prize, because this is going to be the piece that everybody's going to need, because everybody needs some type of housing. Everybody needs to be able to eat. And so right now people are comfortable enough, and I say that with, air quotes, where they're still able to argue on social media about, you know, whether or not President Trump's going to have these votes recounted, or, have enough energy to make another meme about how President Trump is pouting about leaving the office. But, you still got people around you that still ain't eating. The memes ain't, you can't eat memes, So with that, so you have the evictions for failure to pay rent. You got unemployment getting cut off, pandemic unemployment assistance program getting cut off by the 31st. You got student loan deferrals. So students who are paying off federal student loans also received a reprieve under the CARES Act, which gave them the option to defer their loan payments, and which paused an accrual of interest until the end of September 2020. In August, Trump extended the deferment until, you guessed it, December 31st. On January 1st, loan services will once again be able to charge interest on these loans, and students may have to resume paying them off unless the servicer offers deferment options. So all of my folks who are students, or you've had some accrued student debt, this will be the time to maneuver and try to figure out some type of alternative. I know that when you do sign up for a certain amount of units in classes, and this may be, I'm on the West Coast, it may be different in other states, but when you enroll for classes, usually that is a way to tentatively hold payment because you're an active student. So that may be a good time for you to retool, uh, add something to your repertoire, and build some new networks while you're in school, and working in this new hybrid model that we're looking at as the new frontier. As a matter of fact, there's another article I may, if I can find it or pull it up. It was from the World Economic Forum, but they were talking about the idea of education and how they're trying to restructure education in in this current century, and how the model of, whether you're doing a quarterly system or if you're doing uh, a semester system, basically the time that it takes to actually acquire the relevant knowledge that you need is a lot shorter than what they expected. And so
Right.
they're trying to do this new thing. I think it's called micro. I think it's called like micro degrees, where you basically you cut out all of the filler of each particular course, and you don't get a full stamp degree like in a particular subject, but you're just this perpetual student who's going to constantly learn, and you'll never fully matriculate, but you'll still be able to have the skills that you need to be able to jump into the workforce. And this is to fast track and get to what we were talking about before, as far as getting our country up to speed with technology and automation. That's one of the alternatives that they've been discussing and offering. But
So, if I understand correctly, we're going to have some degree candidates, not actual degree people,
yeah,
but degree candidates. And
yes,
what's
sir.
interesting? Speaking of school, right? I wonder. I have a video that I pulled up while you look for that article.
Hmm.
I wonder how much of these people. I'm gonna pull it up here. I wonder how many of these people are, students that have student loans right now, and they've been traveling all over the country with some of that stimulus money.
Mm.
They're really putting some aside for their student loans. But check this out. I'm gonna run that back. I just want to make sure y'all heard that. Hold on one second. Now, the energy is high right now. Everyone's coming together. Oh, you couldn't hear? My fault, man. That might have been on my end. But let me pull that back up. I'll play it with the sound one time. Let me add that. Try this again. So in the video, essentially, there's a portion where there's a black woman on a microphone and she's screaming out, black men, and the crowd's responding. Black woman, the crowd is responding. Black children, the crowd is responding. Black trans, the crowd is responding. Let's see if you get the sound. I wanted to make sure we're not getting any feedback. Hold on one second. Let me reshare that. Share audio. Pull that up. Yeah, we should be getting it coming in now.
I ain't thinking about you. Come on, I ain't sorry. I ain't sorry. Black men, black women, black children,
Wait, run that back. Hold on. Run that back where it said the right there. Yeah, the president. Go back a little bit more. Looking for that commentary. No signs of backing down. Okay. I thought I read that wrong. I thought it said that the president showed no signs of appearing. No signs of backing down. Okay. I thought it said that the president showed no signs of appearing, like in the midst of the crowd.
Right. You know what's interesting though? I hope that as you heard, brothers, there was a whole bunch of Pop Smoke playing, Beyonce, and then Journey playing, and everyone's all kumbaya, all next to each other. After December 31st, I wonder if that energy is going to be kept. That's pretty much my line of thinking, and we still can't forget that the coronavirus is still a thing. But
here's what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm thinking about, man. Because this is off the heels of this video where it said a woman shed infectious coronavirus particles for at least 70 days without showing symptoms, a study found. So hopefully we get Nicole Ali's to weigh in on this. And it looks like Anita Petty, Will's patient, Angel Rodriguez, 40, from the emergency room to the COVID-19 unit at Houston's United Memorial Medical Center. Says on March 2nd, a 71-year-old hospital patient with leukemia tested positive for the coronavirus. On average, COVID-19 patients shed infectious virus particles for about 8 days. But 70 days later, after her diagnosis, the elderly patient was still shedding infectious particles. By mid-June, more than 100 days later, the woman was still testing positive, meaning her body still contained traces of the virus genetic material. The virus is genetic material. We think that at least up to day 70, this patient would have been able to spread the virus to others. Vincent Munster, a virologist at National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, told Business Insider. Munster is the lead author of a recent case study about the woman. Because the patient was quickly isolated in a room, she didn't spread the virus to anyone else. According to Munster's study, published in the journal Cell, probably have to shoot that link off, see if we can verify that. Earlier this week, the patient 70-day period of infectiousness is the longest such span ever seen in an asymptomatic coronavirus patient. For comparison, the longest known span of infectious shedding for a symptomatic person is 61 days, according to an October study. Researchers believe the situation arose because the woman's weakened immune system was unable to mount a substantial defense against the virus. Her blood tests never showed substantial amounts of antibodies, which in most patients help fight off infections, but she also never developed symptoms. And so take this with a grain of salt as well. Um, it looks like the virus could be potentially mutating to something that is asymptomatic, but it even in that asymptomatic, there's so many different variables to it. The biggest piece is that it looks like the shedding time, talking about that 14-day, I think it is current, I don't know if it's 10 or 14, um, for isolation or quarantine. It looks like that's being thrown out the window potentially.
10 to 14 days. But now when you get a 70-day mark, god dang.
Because it's like it's that perfect balance where if depending on in the article it expounds on it in the sense of your immune system isn't strong enough to actually conquer the virus or actually stomp it out so it stops shedding and like has a level of contagiousness that's spreadable, but it's strong enough to hold it off where you don't get sick or you don't display symptoms. And so and this was what this was with a person who had a pre-existing condition, but you know, take that with a grain of salt.
Correct. I mean, we would need, Nicole Ali's take on it, but right now, from what we could ascertain from this article, it looks like, we're breaking up with Trump, but COVID doesn't want to break up with us. Be careful about going to any parties, house parties, and post-election celebrations. Wear your mask.
Yeah, do
Just 6
something.
feet away. I ain't judging the people for going out and doing what they do, because that's just the regular flow of elections. But god dang, the situation is a little different. There's a lot of nuance to it. There wasn't a pandemic back in 2016. There wasn't a pandemic 8 years ago, and now we are in a completely different environment, and we have to be cognizant of that moving forward. So assuming that the contents of that article that West Coast just pulled up are legitimate, and it's a legitimate study with hard results, then that may be some food for thought in preparation for keeping yourself safe when you go out into the environment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, so I wanted to take a look at this act, this emergency action plan that the elect decided he was going to put on his ticket. This is the Biden emergency action plan to save the economy. And like I said, here, especially here at the dojo, we're impartial to whoever is in office. We have understanding that, no matter what your affiliation, um, the things that are most important is what we're trying to focus on. So if it's Trump or if it's Biden, doesn't matter. At this point, we got to see what's being put on the table and what can we ascertain and be able to collect as far as a benefit, especially as being citizens within this country. Bottom line, all straight, no chaser. So let's see what he says. So on this emergency action plan to save the economy, he says at first, we're going to use all available authorities, including the Defense Production Act, to turn the tide on this epidemic. And so let's see what he says in regards to this. Joe Biden knows that no economic strategy will work if we don't stop the virus. In recent days, there's been talk that we have to choose between public health and our economy. That's not just a false choice, it's a dangerous one. It would be catastrophic to reopen everything without a plan and then have a spike in cases and shut it all back down. That would just mean more loss of life, and economic pain. Okay, so he's selling some turkey right here. So let's get to the meat of it. He says that he doesn't actually spell this out, but I think this is probably the main piece where he says we also need to address the shortage of items like ventilators, protective equipment for healthcare workers, and make sure that our workforce on the front lines every day has the protections to provide the essential services we will continue to need. Joe Biden will use his full powers of presidency and this government to make that happen. Okay, so he's not making any specific call outs to policy in like how he would truly enact this or be able to twist Congress's arm and getting those funds.
Correct. And could you highlight that where Joe Biden would end this epidemic and get the economy back on track? I think that is a bold declaration to make. Mystically, this will just disappear because the will of Joe Biden says so. Um, no, no real solid agenda from what I understand. From what I can ascertain so far, what we have read, there hasn't been any indication of the action items, but more or less proposition. It's all theory to me right now. I don't see anything that's like hard sells.
And you know what? I think that, and I'll take this with a grain of salt because this is his splash page to get people to donate. So he's going to pull more to the emotion than actual, like hard hitting facts on what he would do, which, that's just a part of the promotional period. There was another article that actually pulled out some dollars. Let's see right here. Hold on. It says third, bring the leaders of Congress together to build the next deal. This was a good start, but more must be done. Congress approved direct cash relief, $1,200 per person to help working families through crisis, but it's a one-off, and Congress didn't include direct loan forgiveness or Social Security boost for seniors or cost-free treatment for COVID. Joe Biden would provide for additional checks to families should conditions require. Okay.
What does that mean? What are the conditions? I'm gonna need that outline.
Here we go. Forgive a minimum of $10,000 per person of federal student loans, as proposed by Senator Warren and colleagues. Okay, we're gonna add. I'm gonna skip over this. This is just that's just selling to your audience. Increase monthly Social Security by $200 a month, as proposed by Senator Wyden and colleagues. Okay. Provide emergency paid sick leave to everyone who needs it with no one left out.
Yeah, thank you for pulling up that other link. I was about to say, brother, we're gonna have to transition to that.
Got them hyperlinks.
Yeah, man. Let's dive into this.
Joe and Kamala's plan to beat COVID-19.
I want to see someone make a meme with like Mike Tyson fighting COVID-19, like the actual image of the virus. Oh man. But
he said everybody got a plan until they get hit with COVID.
Man, I'm telling you. But let's continue.
Okay, so it looks like this is the model that they're going to be moving off of, which is listen to science, ensure public health decisions are informed by public health professionals, restore trust, transparency, common purpose, and accountability to our government.
Could we, okay, I think we're gonna dive deeper into what those three things mean. Because all right, go ahead.
Man, they selling turkey, man. Look at this. Hold on. The first thing, fix Trump's testing and tracing fiasco. Okay. We have to wade in the political leanings to get to the actual core piece. All right. So bear with us. Double the number of drive-through testing sites. Invest in next generation testing, including at-home tests and instant tests, so we can scale up our testing capacity by orders of magnitude. Stand up a pandemic testing board like Roosevelt's War Production Board. It's how we produce tanks, planes, uniforms, and supplies in record time. And it's how we can produce and distribute tens of millions of tests.
I question the verbiage, brother. I want to
Yeah.
know why that verbiage. Like, what is the
like
direct correlation?
like Roosevelt's war production board.
Yeah, man. Like, what is the direct correlation? I'm gonna hold my comments. Continue.
Establish a U.S. public health jobs corp to mobilize at least 100,000 Americans across the country with support from trusted local organizations in communities most at risk to perform culturally competent approaches to contact tracing and protecting at-risk populations. Okay. Fix personal protective equipment problems for good. Joe,
Okay, I can't hold this. I can't hold this.
Spit.
I gotta get in their ass. But I'm gonna let you read these 3 points. Go ahead.
Joe Biden will take responsibility rather than leave state, cities, tribes, said tribes and territories to fend for themselves and focus on producing more of these critical supplies in the United States. He will fully use the Defense Production Act to ramp up production of masks, face shields, and other PPE so that the national supply of personal protection equipment exceeds demand in our stores and stockpiles, essentially in hard hit areas that serve disproportionately vulnerable populations, are fully replenished. Build now toward a future flexible American source and manufactured capability to ensure we are not dependent on other countries in a crisis.
Now, before you continue, my issue with this PPE problem for good is that you can have all of the PPE in place, and PPE is supposed to be your last line of defense when you think about the hierarchy of controls. And in my line of work, there's still some people that don't wear the PPE even when they're instructed to. And in the hierarchy of controls, you first thing you should do is remove or prevent the hazard from ever occurring. So let's say like a brother gets on a ladder, he doesn't have any PPE on whatsoever, no fall protection, no hard hat, nothing. And he's on that ladder and he's up certain footage in the air. First thing to do is get that man off the ladder. But now when you're taking into consideration a mask and or face shield or other PPE to pretty much protect you from COVID-19, when you have a whole lot of people that scream pandemic, and wearing a mask is like equivalent to slavery. I can't breathe, even though they smoke cigarettes regularly and religiously. I'm not sure if that's going to fix that PPE problem. So you might want to do a little bit more of a deep dive into PPE policy as far as the pandemic is concerned. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I don't think that's something that there's a declaration to make just yet. Like, you can't fix that PPE problem for good because there's going to be people that aren't willing to wear the PPE. Are you going to find them? You know, let me not give too much ideas. I don't want to have any hate mail coming to the dojo. You might have to invite people in for a little kumite, if you will. But that's my question to the PPE point. And I know there's still some other points in this this piece that you want to cover. So by all means, West Coast, continue. I'm here.
Man, I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think that because we're just about at time, and we can cover something else to wrap up. I think that the biggest thing here is I know that the biggest thing here is what is this next elect, whoever it is, what are they going to do about, you know what I'm saying? What are they going to do about this? See if I can actually pull that bad boy up. Boom. Let's see if this is the one right here. Oh, I mean, that's one of them, the national eviction moratorium. My question is, what are they going to do about what's coming down the pipeline? Because there's people in the midst of the argument about PPE, in the argument about um, you know, this whole pandemic thing about who's going to be in office is people's rent is still due. For those who are homeowners and those who are renting, you short on bread. For the most part, the level of unemployment is up, which effectively means, because I don't want to get too political in how I'm bringing up each of these subjects. Um, so unemployment is up, ergo, when people aren't able to feed their families, essentially, this is how crime ends up getting spiked. I know that the idea of being a little bit more lax on drugs and allowing people to enable themselves to basically self sedate and self medicate, um, as a particular option to, buy you some time, that's one thing. But if they're put out in the street where they're not able to uh, be able to, have a home to put that into practice, that's a whole nother bag of worms that you have to deal with, and not to mention the deficit that's on that's on our country's head. So the promises about PPE, the promises about ensuring that the average American citizen is able to, be able to take care of themselves, and they're not eating out of house and home in their own regards and trying to survive. These are the questions that the elect, whoever it is, they're going to have to answer for, and that's what I'm more interested in at this present moment, instead of the fiasco and the theatrics about a president, a current sitting president who may be pouting about why he isn't the next um incumbent up, because we all still got to live, we all still got to eat, we all still got to be able to thrive in our environment. And so, December 31st, ladies and gentlemen, that's what my eyes are on right now, and seeing what seeing what 45 will do in the interim, seeing what Congress will do more so, because I'm less concerned about 45 right now, because I'm hearing, at least from some of the articles and some of the sources that I've been listening to, that a lot of the stimulus was jammed up because they were playing politics and they didn't want 45 to get this passed for what this represented symbolically to the folks and the people that he's trying to pander towards, which we're in the midst of in the midst of this strife that we're going through. The fact that people still have enough room to play politics and try to maneuver, that's the part that I'm more interested in at large than the actual people on the ground who are, depending on what side of the aisle that you're on, literally fighting for your life. But your aggression and your focus is on the wrong target, But as we at the dojo know, because I don't want to say too much, I want to stay on the ledge myself, that's a part of the design where you're so focused on this one particular individual or this one public figure that you forget that the policy that actually drives all of this stuff that we call living here in a society is what's truly at stake. And the people who are like truly jamming up you from like living and the people that are being covered in order to make sure that that happens is the part that from a black male independent standpoint, I want to keep my eyes on, and I'm hoping brothers keep their eyes on whichever side of the aisle that you're on, because you could easily be dueling to the death for crumbs while entity X has the whole loaf. If I was to provide an analogy to what I'm trying to convey here. So was there something else you wanted to add to this, Brother Seventh? Another article, another piece to kind of wrap things up?
Not another piece, but a statement,
All right.
nonetheless, to the brothers that are the thinking black men that are really taking the time to meditate and reflect, while those who are drawing these lines in the sand and attempting to get at you or attack you Just know this is how we at the dojo see you, and you win. You know, even in your meditation and just reflecting on what has occurred, and you're trying to really gauge what's occurring in this political environment and what could potentially happen in the future. No matter what you hear, no matter how many social media attacks may come your way, just remember that as you stick within your principle and your frame, no harm will come to you. So no matter how hard they try, they will always get smite down. You know, we at the dojo see you, and we are proud of you, brothers. If you hadn't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here. And with that, we close. Oos.